the trades are sexy again, you know?
DISC stands for,
Would you mind if I like filmed myself doing this?
one or two of them are like going to be off the charts for you.
It was two different ideas that I was doing at the same time, and then this one just popped.
I'm not the type of person you want to do the taxes or the workers' comp audits.
You don't think like me, and I don't think like you.
When you think about content, you got to think about who's watching it and where are they watching it and what are they doing when they're watching it.
That's the kind of person that you want just regularly showing up and showing out at work.
I know how social media works. I'm going to post videos and pictures, and like everybody is in my area is going to call. And I didn't realize like YouTube doesn't really.
There's kind of like the small mom and pop operation, or maybe one man versus.
One of the main reasons why the younger generations aren't applying to our trades is because of.
Welcome to Beers with Contractors.
Crack 'em, Dylan.
There it comes.
Already had the cap off of mine ahead of time. Tradies, good to see you guys this week on another episode of Beers with Contractors. Dylan, did you see I got my goat shirt on today?
The goat. What is that from?
It is the local watering hole in Hartford, South Dakota,
Nice.
west of the airport. Helped onboard a company up there, awesome company. And I asked, well, where do people go to eat here? I always like to see the local staple. And they were like, well, we go to the Goat. And it's pretty much a hole in the wall. Super nice people. Got served by Barb at the bar.
I didn't take you as the kind of guy that bought the merch from the restaurant.
Oh, dude, if they got a T-shirt, you know it's like, man, they're not making good margins on those potato fries. Might as well get a T-shirt, you know?
I love it.
How was the weather? You starting to feel the heat in those windows yet?
It's rough. Yeah, for the listeners out there, I have an office with 10 windows around me, and the windows haven't been updated in 110 years, so it's toasty in here, and that's a reason for me to wear shorts every day to work. So that's a good excuse.
Yeah, when it said on the MLS listing that it had a sauna, you weren't expecting it to be the fully glassed-in porch, were you?
That's right. And I get what I pay for it because we bought it as is, so it's like, hey, we got some work. We've got a decade or two of work ahead of us, and that's all right.
Yeah, hell yeah, good for you. Full disclosure, we had a train wreck of a recording yesterday, so we are coming back today to re-record this. Thank you for not ditching us because of some bad content, but if you do have an opportunity, I'm really bad for asking this, be sure to like and subscribe. As the young kids say, hit that little bell for us. But Dylan, I wanted to talk about something today because we have a lot of folks ask us about personality assessments, and I feel like we have gone through every damn personality assessment under the sun. I mean, can you count even off the top of your head what we've done at our company? Goodness gracious.
Yeah, we're probably pushing double digits, and fortunately, I think most candidates that apply for your foundation repair company, they only get one or two of them. I think maybe a couple poor souls have probably had 3 assessments, and they're like, what? Are they like just diving into my psyche? Like we're sitting down on a couch and super examining people, but we have a favorite, I think. This is like top 1 or 2 that Will and I love.
The DISC assessment. I think that's the keystone of most of the assessments. I wouldn't say we'd use it for every position, but we get asked in our Facebook groups and things like that all the time. And it's tried and true. I like to, rely on this specifically for managers and salespeople a lot. But I tell you what, Dylan, because I will use more colorful metaphors for some of the acronyms, I will let you go through the DISC assessment descriptions because the first one is D. And that could be taken in a lot of different ways, but I'll let you go ahead and PG-13 this up for everybody.
All right, so what is the DISC assessment? DISC, obviously, I hope you guys can spell D-I-S-C. DISC stands for Dominance, Influence, Steadiness, and Compliance. And so those are the 4 components. Basically, when you take the test, 1 or 2 of them are like going to be off the charts for you. And so those are the personality traits that you tend to exhibit more than the others. So let's just kind of go by them one by one. Dominance, those are the kinds of people that are like super direct, results oriented. They're firm and strong willed.
Yeah, move along, Dylan. We got to get this over with. Come on.
Exactly. Case in point right there. and then we got the I, so influence. Those are outgoing people, super enthusiastic, optimistic, and high spirited. And then we have S for steadiness. So that's your even tempered people. They're more accommodating and patient. And they just tend to be a little bit more tactful when they get a problem. They're going to kind of be a little bit more diplomatic about it. And then finally, C for compliance. This is your analytical types. They're more reserved, precise, and systematic in the way that they approach problems. And you right now have someone in mind for each of those types. And odds are, if you're somewhat self-aware, you know kind of where you land. But we always get some fun out of the fact that Will is just like off the charts in a couple of these.
Dude, I have listened to you show managers my profile as an outlier of like, look at this weirdo. Like, look how does this guy function in society?
Yes.
And mind you, I took this in my 20s and I was very high I. I was doing a lot of sales marketing at the time. Had some D, zero. I was negative on steadiness and compliance. So obviously, I'm not the type of person you want to do the taxes or the workers' comp audits or things like that. But as I got older, I was like, you know what? I think I've calmed down a little bit. I'm probably more steady, steady Eddie. But I actually got worse. And I'm way worse at compliance and more at dominance. Maybe it's my old age and my impatience. But Dylan, you reside in the steady and compliance side, though, right? Isn't that funny how it complements one another?
Yeah, the old yin and yang. Yeah, we're definitely opposites. And so there's some benefit there because you don't think like me and I don't think like you. And the steadiness compliance side is like that's the kind of person that you want just regularly showing up and showing out at work.
Yeah.
And you could imagine like some roles, your payroll HR kind of roles are the ones that are highly compliant. You don't want to mess around with that. But then, yeah, one thing that we love to look at DISC for was managers that are often the best managers have to have some level of influence, right? Like they need to be at least above average on influence. And then directness really comes in handy when you're talking like general management, sales management, because you have to be results driven. Otherwise, you're going to be failing as a company.
Which that gets into a whole other assessment that we use called PIAV, but we won't go down that rabbit hole just yet. Yeah, like for example, Adam Yakeley, our controller, is very super high compliant, high dominant, which doesn't mean he's a bully. He's just very matter of fact. But our sales manager is actually very high influence and steady. But we want our salespeople to be high D, high I, because we want them to, go out there and conquer their own destiny, but also be social creatures, be able to, I don't want to say be a chameleon, but get along with a lot of people. So we have just found value in all of these. And, so just to even the playing field, when people ask, what personality assessments do you use at your company? First off, I'm like, all right, get out a notebook. I'll tell you all of them. I think we take them for fun now just to see how weird we are as human beings. But DISC is, I think, the easiest barrier of entry. And then also the reports we use, I think they're like $75 a piece. But before this show, I did reach out to a good friend of mine, Michael Morrison, who owns Boss Business Owners Simplified. And he's a business consultant. He's got a DISC assessment that's, I think, $25. So, and by the way, we don't get any kickback for this. I know Michael, he's helped a lot of companies. But if you want to see what a DISC assessment is, feel free to reach out to Michael at michaeldmorrison.com and just mention DISC assessment in the email, and he'll get you the link necessary. If you want to have a really good laugh, hit me up at williamwalkerblake.com, and I'll send you mine and Dylan's DISC assessment for laughs, so you guys can get a kick out of that. But yeah, on to our guest today, Dylan, which I am pumped. So much so that I'm going to let you introduce a guest. You found this guest for us, and I've known this guest for a long time, and I'm just super excited to have him on. I'm electrified to have him on. I know.
What
the
a
puns
pun
are
right there.
awful. The
audience
puns
is like
coming, bro. We just got 3 unsubscribes.
Well, that's right. I'm just as thrilled about this guest too, so much so that we manufactured a bunch of technical difficulties yesterday just so that he would have to come back today. So This is going to be good.
Hey, contractors, it's Will. Listen, are you ready to take your business to the next level? I want to introduce everybody to ShipShape AI. It's an AI-powered home monitoring system that keeps your customers' homes running smoothly and gives you the edge over the competition. Imagine being the hero who spots an issue before it turns into a disaster, like a flooded basement or a busted HVAC system. ShipShape's smart sensor alerts you to the problems before they happen so you can swoop in with the solution for your customers. But it's not just about saving the day. ShipShape helps you tap into past customers with tailored marketing campaigns, turning one-time jobs into long-term relationships. Plus, you can grow your maintenance plans and get more follow-up on projects, all while offering your customers the peace of mind that they crave. And the best part, ShipShape's Pro Monitoring service handles the tech support, so you can focus on what you do best, building and maintaining and repairing homes. So in the market where the competition is fierce, now is the time to secure your customers and protect this premium pricing. Learn more at ShipShape.ai or click the link in the episode description here. That's ShipShape.ai. Or you can even call our friends at ShipShape at 205-207-5775. ShipShape, where smart homes meet smart contractors.
Our guest today is Dustin Stelzer. He's the founder of Electrician U and a master electrician based out of Austin, Texas. So Dustin created Electrician U back in 2016. He produces videos on YouTube and other social media platforms to provide knowledge around the electrical trade. This is really cool. With over 730,000 subscribers and nearly 100 million views on YouTube, Dustin's
That's
made a
nuts.
huge impact on electrical education, and he's doing it in other ways besides YouTube, but I hope you well exceed 100 million this month. Despite the demands of working 40 to 60 hours a week just as an electrician, he started out, building Electrician U himself, and now he's got a whole team around him to just grow his online instructor-led classes and self-paced video courses. So we're excited. He's a powerhouse of knowledge. Welcome to the show, Dustin.
What's up?
Dustin.
Dude, that might be the best intro I've ever gotten from anyone. Thank you. That made me seem like I'm like all right over here.
I know
Let's go.
he had plenty of practice with yesterday's.
I thought we weren't going to
snafu.
talk about it. We're not supposed to tell anybody,
That's
bro.
all right. We're good. We're having a blast. So Dustin, first off, we've had a lot of different business owners and different, media folks on the show, but not a lot in the electrical side. So all dad jokes aside, I am super pumped to have you because it's like, man, what a demand in the electrical field. But before we start diving into just all that cool stuff that you're doing, let's just jump in. Like, how the hell did we get here, Dustin? How did you find yourself running, Electrician U and this awesome just beast of an education tool that you're running today?
Honestly, nobody else was doing it. So at the time I was studying as a journeyman and I was trying to get my hands on books at libraries, and it was a lot of like calculus and, differential equations and stuff. And I'm like, bro, I just need somebody to explain what a capacitor is in like human speak, and there just wasn't anything. So once I got my master license, I realized there is nothing out there for electricians, and there's tons of people that are working for varying degrees of people that may or may not know stuff. And so I was just like, I'm going to make a resource for people. And it just caught on, man. It caught on like wildfire. And then, TikTok came out and all that stuff. So it just became a really acceptable thing to do, to go out and like record yourself and talk about what you're doing. And it's kind of become this like, the trades are sexy again,
Thank you for saying that. They are sexy.
Yeah.
And we make a lot of jokes because I obviously come from the foundation repair space, but it's a common stereotype that electricians are typically the slower and more messy.
Hey.
I'm just kidding.
Hey, messy,
Man, throwing
okay.
shade already.
I'll
Yeah,
take messy, all right.
But hold on. So what happened in your life that said, hey, like, we're going to just record me doing this and voila, like this is what we do now? Like, what was that kind of light bulb moment that just started that? And what was the first video?
Oh man. So the first video was a different channel. So I have another channel called Journey to Master, like Journey number 2. And I just started doing truck talks. And at the time I had started my company, Young Master Electrician. I was like 29 years old. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to beat all these old guys. I know how social media works. I'm going to post videos and pictures, and like everybody is in my area is going to call. And I didn't realize like YouTube doesn't really only filter to like local customers, So it ended up just being electricians that were watching, and they're like, oh dude, yeah, I love this video. You should do one about this. So it morphed, but it was a way for me to try to get the phones ringing, because I was putting, Facebook reviews, Facebook videos. I was filming full episodes, like me and my guys out there just being silly and stupid, but, doing good work. And I was just talking about everything. And like, we got fired from one job because my knuckleheads did some stupid stuff, but I documented everything I was doing. And that's where it started. And the Electrician U thing came out of it because it was like, I really want to teach. I want to like teach how this stuff works. And so it was two different ideas that I was doing at the same time. And then this one just popped.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Your answer to the initial question there, you mentioned how you started doing it and then it became socially acceptable a couple years later. So I'm just imagining you in the early days, like people just staring at you and you're like in a house or you're in your truck and they're like, well, is he recording himself right now? Is that Luther doing it?
Right?
Dude, it was. I had to ask customers. I'm like, hey, I make these internet videos. Would you mind if I like filmed myself doing this? And most of them were like, yeah, kind of cool. And they would tell other people about it, you know?
As long as you use those hand gestures when you told them, like you're conjuring some magic. We make these interweb videos, and anyway, that's hysterical.
That's awesome. So I got to ask, we with Beers with Contractors, we're creating content. We know a lot of contractors that are trying to grow their content game. So just can you share with us what's your process for developing new content, and how do you ensure that you're trying to grow your relevancy on the internet?
Well, that has changed a lot over the years. I think that you have to think at scale. You can't think about like one thing and I'm going to put this one thing out right now. You have to think about, what am I going to do 4 days a week that can make sure that I'm taking up real estate in people's feed in my niche. So like right now, if you type the word electrician into the internet, pretty much anywhere, Spotify, it doesn't matter, you will see my face. And so it just got to the point where it was like, okay, I know that I need to do like X amount of things so that when young 18-year-old electrician is on TikTok and they're just scrolling, they got a high probability of just seeing my face come across. And then when people are not in that fast mode, when they've got maybe lunch break and they're eating a sandwich, they got 30 minutes to kill and they're over on, Instagram. I've got like a bunch of different lesson kind of things that are a little bit different kinds of content. And then when they're just, sitting at home at 9 o'clock at night in their bed and they got Joe Rogan, time to kill on something, I got like 1.5 hour podcasts where I'm sitting there shooting the I don't know if you guys cuss on this.
Oh yeah.
Shooting the shit with people. All right. I'm sorry. I got to
put it out there.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like, I think when you think about content, you got to think about who's watching it and where are they watching it and what are they doing when they're watching it and what do they want to see? Like if you're going to show them something, why are you showing that to them? What's relevant about it? And I think that can help inform why and what you make for content.
Well, I think you've carved out such a specific need in the market, though, too, Dustin, which I admire. I'm a fan of your page and your videos, and I have referenced it. Don't tell anybody for some repairs at my home, which we'll get to those OSHA violations later in another episode. It's funny you mention this because it's such a visual trade. Electricity is kind of intangible, but its true form, there's a lot of things, moving parts, i.e., and things that need to be understood about it. So it's providing a great value. One thing you mentioned before is like you put it out there for content for customers, but then all of a sudden electricians were watching it. So, in your experience of growing such an audience, there's this big divide with electrical companies. There's kind of like the small mom and pop operation or maybe one man versus some very sophisticated, really well-oiled machines in the electrical space. In your opinion, what are a few of the maybe top 2 or 3 things that you're finding separates those two and getting people to grow their businesses?
That's interesting. I think it really depends on the type of person. So what I've noticed is there's a lot of companies that tend to stay at the 5 to 10 employee mark because it's easy to manage 3 chucks in a truck, and 3 helpers, and you maintain a really great profitability or whatever profitability. It's just easier to maintain that. When you got 300 knuckleheads running around a whole city or multiple cities and all these company trucks and stuff, it's so difficult to manage even training. Like, how do you get that many people in one room to train? Or how do you get, some of these people that are on the top 50 list that have like 300 billion in revenue a year, they've got US, they've got like 1,500 techs all over every state. And so kind of what I've been building right now, I didn't even mean to like drop this in here, but we're building a learning system so that no matter what company needs training, you have a centralized place where everybody can be trained on the same thing. So it's just, I think there's some people that like really want to scale and grow big. And usually when they do that, they start eating other companies. They start pulling in a plumbing company and pulling in an HVAC company. And that's what jacks them up in size. And then you've got people that are just trying to like eke out a living and stay at this certain size.
Yeah, and sorry, Dylan, I'm going to interrupt you real quick because I know you got a great question because I saw this on our questionnaire here. You know, when you talk about that, though, Dustin, more about like just the size of these companies, but also this new learning center that you're creating. Like, who can access that learning center? How do they use it? You know, what levels in the organization? Tell us more about that. I didn't know about this, so this is I geek out over this stuff. I'm never going to be an electrician, but I would definitely like geek in. We did that with Roger Wakefield's app.
I love that dude. I love him. Roger in the morning. I love seeing that stuff. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Tell me more about this. I didn't know about this.
Yeah. So the reason I didn't bring it up, yesterday or any like us talking about it is because we're still a couple months away from it launching. But what I built is an entire learning environment for an individual electrician. If you can't access school, if you're working non-union, or you just don't have the ability to go to school, a lot of the school programs and stuff that your boss can pay for are like hundreds of dollars a month. So like accessing education is nearly impossible for a lot of people. So I was like, all right, $25 a month. I'll just give you hundreds of videos and articles and podcasts and lessons and quizzes. And I, gamify it with badges and points and all kinds of stuff. So we built that. And then I was like, the people that ask us the most, if we have something like this, are businesses of that kind of middle size, like 100 to 500 employees. Because they're at that growing pain. They're at that trying to get from 10 to 50 million or 50 to 100 million. And they don't have a way of centralizing. So they need to kind of tighten things up and be able to train all of their people on something. So we built a business side of it as well. It's got an admin access. So you as an admin can have managers that have, groups of technicians. You issue them whatever training you want to, track their progress. You kind of see who the leaders are, who your key players are, who the ones that aren't taking this seriously, and maybe time to let them go and get somebody else in. But it's a way that it's scalable up to as many techs as you have. So 500, 5,000 doesn't matter.
I'm excited to hear this because, we see this, that there's some of these like broad home service gurus around the country that kind of cast a wide net, but they don't specialize.
Yeah.
And to hear that this is specific for electrical, this is going to be awesome because the small mom and pop operations that are in our backyards, coming to our house on the weekends, after hours. I mean, those are the ones that need it. So I'm excited to hear this. How do people access this when it comes out? Or where do people look it up?
It's just going to be electricianu.com. So like right now, the reason I'm not talking about it is because our current website is just trash. There's all kinds of problems and we just haven't been doing anything with it for a long time. So we are redesigning the entire site, rebuilding it. We've been spending an entire year now putting all this together. So once you go to electricianu.com, probably I would say October timeframe, it's going to be right there front and center. Like this is everything we're about. Sign up.
That's awesome. Dylan, we got to put a reminder in our future notes to bring this up when it gets launched for sure. Future shows. Cause this is, late August. We're allowing folks to listen to this. This is cool. Sorry, I totally detoured.
That's okay.
Poor Dylan. Dylan, do you want to jump into the interview now? Do you have questions, sir?
So, Dustin, I have some opinions on this because, well, first off, I found you on the internet because I was an electrician apprentice for about a year and a half.
All right.
And I didn't know. I was going out on job sites and being told to do things. Like I remember my second day, like, yeah, go over to that box and make up a 3-way switch. And I'm like, a what? I've never heard of a 3-way switch. I don't know what that is. I thought they were just switches, and so I was thrown out there and I was like, well, I got to learn in the evenings when I'm not being taught things during the day. And so I found your videos online, super helpful. And then I months later, started at an independent electrical school that was sponsored by my company. And man, that thing sucked. It was awful. It was like, I felt like I was back in 8th grade.
Yeah.
And that we were just there to fill the 4 hours a week. And like what we could have learned in 2 hours, we just had to literally sit in class.
Yeah.
And so I've got a lot of opinions on this. And Roger Wakefield, who we referenced earlier, has opinions on this. So I just got to ask you, what do you believe traditional trade schools, how they're failing in the trades and basically what could improve?
Just burn them all down. No, I'm totally kidding. So trade school is a little bit of a trigger point for me, I suppose. I think a lot of what's happening with schools is their businesses first, and they don't communicate that with the students. So a lot of them are not necessary. They don't give
Yeah.
you any sort of hours. Most of them, not, I shouldn't say most, many of them, you pay like 20 grand to do. But if you just went in to be an apprentice, you'd get paid every day to do the same, and learn more.
Yeah.
A lot of the schools don't put tools on your belt and actually have you twisting things so that like, hey, this is a pancake. When you go get hired, a master electrician is going to say, I don't care what all of that, textbook stuff and boards, whatever you guys were doing. What can you do with those clients, and how do you wire this three-way? Like that's what they care about more. So the schools just aren't really set up to replace the field, and I don't think they should. I think the field is the only place that you can actually learn skill. But I think for people that are out in the field and they kind of understand, they're starting to get a grasp of what they're doing, adding school to what they're doing could be really profound for those people and give them a crazy edge that the rest of the competition doesn't have.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because, and don't be embarrassed. I feel the same way, because I get to deal with trade schools all the time for our construction camp for kids. And I get to see, well, is it translating? But so based on your suggestion, Dustin, about, get out there in the field, learn it with your hands. You're going to get paid to do it.
Yeah.
For a young man in Wichita, Kansas, that just needs to pay his bills. Let's just say his name's, Rillin, Cott. What suggestions would you give to them in looking for a company for that apprenticeship? Because I know there's value, and we don't want to teach the trades the bad ways of doing it. But what suggestions would you have there?
The thing to think about is, like, a lot of places you have to go to school. And I think I should have prefaced that. Like, I don't know this area that you're talking about, but if like the state of Utah, there is no other choice. If you are to be an electrician, you have to be sponsored by a company, and you have to go through 4 years of school. And so the only way you're allowed to test for your license is if you've done those things. But that's a rarity.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like the other places, like where I'm from, Austin, Texas, there ain't any of that. You literally just go on Google, search up electrician near me, and you look at all the results, and you just start calling, being like, hey man, are you guys hired apprentices? I want to start this. I've used tools before with my dad, give me a shot. And you just keep calling until somebody gives you a shot.
Yeah. And I can imagine that's not all over the country, but a wide margin of the country with job shortages. It's like, yeah, companies are going to be like, yes, let's get you in the door. If you're a good fit, then like, yeah, let's endorse you for an apprentice license. I mean, heck, if Dylan could get hired as an electrician.
You're really brutal to this young man.
It was during COVID. It was during COVID. Everyone was super desperate. We're like, business is booming. We just need help. So I just got a job.
Oh, I'm glad
Honestly,
that you came into my field as a desperate, effort. That's great to hear.
Dylan, I needed.
Don't worry. I love you. We've worked together for a long time, so I can take some jabs. So
it's all good. Hey, I'm grateful. I tell you what, the amount of things that I can fix in my own house that the average homeowner would have to call some help for. It's pretty cool. So going into the trades, even if you don't permanently live there, is just so beneficial in a number of ways. It's kind of creating that mechanical mind. Will, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about misconceptions.
Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit, Dustin, because the biggest misconception people have about electricians is that, there's so many out there, but what's one or two of the biggest misconceptions that just get under your skin about the electrical trades?
I think just in general, as tradesmen, most people think tradespeople are just dirty, low life, convicts that have nothing going on. And I've worked around a lot of very wealthy, large money kind of projects and people. And it's unfortunate because they don't see an electrician. They see one of those guys. They see a gardener, plumber. Like, we're all just the same thing. We're dirty. We work with our hands, and they should probably like keep tabs on what rooms we're on in their house. And I'm like, there's nothing about us as humans that's accurate about. Like, we're just as shady at every level as like corporate people are, but we're just as kind and nice and compassionate and everything as everyone else is.
Yeah. Well, and your son has been working with you in the trades too, right? Like, how's that going? And what's been your kind of interpretation of bringing in the younger generation to all this?
Oh man, my kid He might, well, I guess a lot of people that like their dads were in the trades. This is my story as well. But when you're young and your dad's just bringing you everywhere because that's what you have to do. There was nobody to watch me, the same thing with him. Like I have pictures when he was probably 5 years old trying to pull the trigger on my drill with his miniature tool belt and tools that didn't even do anything. So I just always had him with me. And I think the relationship that he and I have, he's always like looked up to me as, like, I want to be like dad. And so just naturally being out in the field, like we're homies, dude, we're thick as thieves. So getting to ride together and just kind of like y'all two, just shoot the shit and crack on each other throughout the day and then work on stuff. Like I've found that most kids, when they are given something, when there's like something to hold and they get to mess with things, kids love it. It's like playing with blocks when you're a kid. It's just at a certain point, they stop doing it. So you put a drill in a kid's hand, dude, and they're going to fall in love with it.
To take multiple parts, put it together, and then voila, all of a sudden there's illumination.
Yeah.
To us in the trades, it's like, yeah, we've been doing this for years. But yeah, man, the younger generation, I say younger generation, your son's how old now? 19 or?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you guys have been working together for a long time. My son's starting to work in our business, and same thing, man. The ability to see creation from your work has just been awesome.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of folks that want to hate on the younger generations, but dude, they are awesome, man. Just give them something tactile to work with.
Right. And so often it's like, it's the virtual reality world of Gen Alpha and video games that, our kids are growing up with. And it's like, there's something better than virtual reality. And that's just reality. And like, you can go hold the hammer instead of imagine holding a hammer.
Yeah.
So hold that thought. Dustin, I got to ask you, because you've worked with your son. Has there ever been a moment where you're like, hey, son, is that breaker off? And he's like, yeah. And then you go to that socket or light and it was, in fact, not off. Has that happened?
No, because I don't allow myself to ever work on something without verifying. And I don't trust what anybody says. I've had a master electrician when I was up in a bucket truck. And this is the only time I've ever made this mistake and never have since. He was down below and he was disconnecting some wires and I was working on the head of this thing up in this bucket truck. And I was like, all right, is it dead? And he sticks his little thing in it. He goes, dee, 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 and shuts off. He's like, yep, it's dead. Stick my hand in there. It's 480 volt pole.
Holy
lit me
smoke.
up.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I was, and then I got pissed at him and he's like, why didn't you check it? And I'm like, yeah, man.
I did. I asked a question.
Yeah, no, that was valid. It was the stupidest thing. You always check.
Yeah.
Don't trust
Double check.
anybody.
Yep. It's funny. You probably said, like, I did check it, but your words were blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah, because you were too chicken fried
Right.
to understand what the heck was going on in your world.
Yeah.
Damn,
This-
that's a lot of
This is a great segue because I want to ask about safety actually, just because we've been to a conference before, and one of the speakers that talked to us said that one of the main reasons why the younger generations aren't applying to our trades is because of the misconception that they're just not safe. Like you're bound to end up in a hospital, like you're going to be in the ER room probably the second week. That's something that we have to combat in the messaging about our roles. And so I just kind of want to hear from you, in your experience, how do you combat that? Like, what does that messaging look like? How do you talk about it?
I tell people electricity can kill you and it's really dangerous. So I might not be the perfect person, or maybe I'm the perfect person to communicate that. But with electricity, there's kind of this, like, the reason I skydive is for that danger. And I don't know if generationally there's anything different. I mean, I'm sure there's still 18-year-old kids, doing halo jumps in the military, and it's terrifying, jumping out of airplanes and stuff like that. So I don't know that I believe that that's, because that would almost suggest that this is a soft generation. And while I do think there's some weird things with their, their dopamine in their brain and with the phone, and there's a lot of things going on with that, I don't know that I believe that every kid's scared. I think what I get as feedback from my son's generation and my son and all of his friend group is that they don't see the point in applying themselves if there's not going to be any immediate reward for them to put more effort in versus less effort. So like for them, we see minimal effort because there's no direct reward for more effort. And they have a really hard time with, why should I work harder when I see you guys working so hard? You're never home. You're always busy. You've been trying and trying and trying to make money and make something happen for years and years, and I don't want to live my life that way. I would rather sit
Yeah.
here and play Roblox and make money,
Yeah, but that's what's cool about Electrician U is bridging that gap now to where, it's not the whole like just grinding it out for 20 years, watching your parents do it. And I feel shameful even saying that because my kids have seen me grind it. Sydney and I grind it for years. And, we've obviously had a lot of great success. And now they get to see that and understand that it's not always that way. So now they're wanting to be involved in the business, and we never anticipated that. But, I do have to ask this because I'm sure you deal with all sorts of wild comments on your YouTube page, Dustin, either from haters or trolls or whatever. But, what are some of the worst practices you've seen in the industry that you just feel like, hey, we need to call this out in the electrical world before we can fix this problem with job shortages and things like that?
I mean, there's tons of hack work everywhere. I think part of the problem when I see people online doing stuff, it's that I think like 75 to 80% of electricians are just the phone it in every day, just doing the minimums, kind of doing whatever is minimally expected of them. And then there's maybe 25% of people that are like on this pursuit of excellence path where they're trying to be the best out there. There's also a lot of variance in states requiring continuing education or not. So only about 24 out of the 50 states actually require you to do continuing ed to keep your license.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And out of those states, there's probably, don't quote me on the exact amount, but there's probably like 3 or 4 states where you don't even have to do anything. You could just go and like fill out a license. You could do a little bit of training and you're an electrician now. And so you see through the internet a lot of this crazy variance in skill and craftsmanship. And I think with the majority of people, there's kind of just this like, just get it done. Don't worry about it. Don't care about safety. Stop being a wuss, machismo. Like there's not a high degree of standard. So there are a few people out there that are talking, no, these standards are important. You got to make sure to do your best every day. But I think just most people are not that way. And I think that's kind of what irritates me about it.
That's awesome. One thing that I got to say, just as we're like midway through this podcast, I'm fascinated by new technology. Like all the time, I want to kind of hear what's coming down the pipeline or, what's making the waves. And as a former electrician apprentice, like basically I had no technology. I was like, the bare minimum tools. And then I see like the master electrician that I'm working with that just like rolling with like these super cool products and like top, things that I'd never heard of, didn't know what it would help with. And before I ask this question, I got to say kudos to Will's technology today, because when we recorded this yesterday, his camera overheated like 17 times. So thank you, Will, for putting like an ice bag on your camera.
It was 3 times. And
okay,
yes,
right.
I deserved that. I deserved it. You're welcome, for listeners. You're welcome.
There you go. So Dustin, I got to ask, what new tools or technologies have you seen recently or upcoming that have kind of been game changers in the electrical field?
Man, there's a lot. So like in the tool realm, there's tons of new stuff coming out that has basically taken all this old school way of doing stuff that's worked for a long time, but you're like busting your knuckles to try to make this stuff work. And now you just pull a little trigger and the whole thing's done for you instantaneously. So there's, battery powered knockout sets that we have to knock a lot of holes into metal enclosures. And you used to have to drill a pilot hole and stick this big thing in and sit and crank for like 60 seconds. And then it would pop out. And if you had like 40 of those to do in a can, I mean, that was hours of work. And so now you have a battery powered thing that's just like, jink, jink, jink. So there's tons of examples like that. If you look in the home space, smart homes are getting really crazy. So there's a lot of companies out there that are putting logic into these little brains. Schneider Electric, who makes Square D, they've got this thing called Wiser Energy, and you basically put it into your house, wire it in, and you can replace breakers with relays now. So if you want to have control from an app, you can literally shut things off, turn things on. You can monitor all the usage in your panel and see some loads might be drawing more, or your kid forgot to turn a light off. You can turn it off. There's just a lot of cool devices and receptacles that are controlled. So the smart home game is like really ramping up.
So that's crazy, because we were talking to this pre-call, like, and I didn't make the connection, Dustin, but you were referencing, and it's so funny in your background, you got all these like breaker boxes and things. It was like a breaker. There's not a lot to it. Not a lot's changed since knob and tube wiring.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is now they've taken the most basic function of the electrical world of the breaker and now putting smart technology in it, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So, I mean, you have like these old school breakers. This is just a mechanical switch. There's a little spring inside, and if too much current goes through, boom, it shuts off. But it doesn't tell you if the problem was caused because a hot hit a piece of metal, or if there was an arc in the
Huh.
circuit, or if there was, like a ground fault, arc fault. There's all kinds of different reasons as to why something would trip. It doesn't give you any information about what the load is doing that's hooked up to this. If it's drawing too much, if it's running, so there's just not a lot of smarts that are going on. So now a lot of the breakers that are being designed and a lot of the control systems that for these things are just doing a lot of that monitoring as well. And they're able to give the homeowner a little bit more information about their system.
Yeah, so it's wild to think because it's not like, no, we're just electricians. We wire houses and make the lights turn on, which, by the way, this last year we got hit by severe storms during storm season. You find a renewed love for electricians when you're without power.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And now that smart technology's taken over, it's just, when I say taking over, it's not, we're adopting it into our lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Electricians aren't just electricians. They're like IT professionals in the house now. It's crazy what's going on.
Yeah.
And, with that one project or innovation in the electrical field that you're really excited about or getting passionate about right now, like for the next 12 months, other than your electrician U.
Yeah, I was going to say Electrician U.
Yeah. Because, dude, well, honestly, with all this technology coming in, that's going to fuel, like you mentioned, all these states that don't require continuing education. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
Because we have now this wave of tech coming into the trades. And so, like, I guess call it Nostradamus here a little bit, Dustin. Like, in the next 12 months, like, what are the major shifts that you anticipate in the electrical world that, some of the listeners can benefit from hearing?
Well, I think there's a couple of really big focuses right now just in the world of energy in general. And a lot of the EV systems and the solar are trying to kind of help fix the fact that we generate this much electricity and we use this much electricity every single day. And we have so much power generation and just energy we consume, bro. We eat energy. And we're so wasteful. We got lights everywhere. We're so wasteful with the energy we produce. And there's kind of a finite amount of utility grid that we can have. So getting alternative power set up and having infrastructure for wind farms and solar farms, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more push into that, into renewables, battery, big battery storage systems. So like I mentioned Schneider a second ago, but they have a kind of like a Tesla Powerwall where they've got battery backup systems for homes now. So you can run your house on batteries with solar. So getting like generators, battery, solar integrated into houses, I see a lot of that starting to happen and ramp up. But yeah, just being able to store and add energy and like maybe design loads so that we're not consuming so much. Because I think we could accomplish a lot of our living and existing with way less consumption.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I think the culture just says you got to have it, and
Right.
there's a lot of ways that we can either innovate to use it and just use it with a diminished amount of energy consumption, or we forget that we can go without sometimes. But that's probably for another conversation. I gotta ask.
Hey, whoa, right now. Slow your roll, Dylan, because listen, my sons probably have every frickin' light on in my house right now. It's the middle of the day.
Right.
The AC's probably set at 71. I am slowly becoming that dad that's walking around each room with one light bulb. But now my, element light bulb doesn't work in these frickin' LED fixtures. And I'm just joking aside. If any parents out there, you walk around your house in the middle of the night wondering, why the hell are all these lights on?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Inevitably, they're going to be on. So I want to come back, Dustin. My electrical experience, interesting, because, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so the dangers that you may walk into, there's dangers there, but you don't exactly know where they're going to come from or how they're going to happen. And, I've had different exposures to the dangers in the electrical field, but I always just think of shortcuts. It's often when we take some shortcuts that's where the dangers present themselves. And I've seen electricians that are just like, they're trying to find a circuit, and so they find a way to trip the breaker that may not be the safest thing possible. And I'm sure you've had some exposure to this, so I'm just curious, what's a dangerous shortcut in the electrical field that just kind of grinds your gears?
Well, I think shortcuts in what you do is not okay. Shortcuts in how you do things is okay. Like, for instance, if I've got some kind of trick for bending conduit that's going to save, when I have 100 of the same bend to bend, and I have to find a method of using trigonometry to like set something up so that I can just like fly through these, those are great shortcuts. But shortcuts in the quality of your craftsmanship, or the trying to fly through stuff because you're trying to hit a deadline and you're not going to make money if you don't like finish this 8-hour job in 2 hours. So you're just cutting corners. It's when a lot of, wires don't get fully landed on a terminal, and now you got to lose termination, and you go home at night and this whole panel's glowing red hot and they all melt and the house starts on fire. It's a lot of like that ramshackle, get it done, get it really quick thing. That is where the problems happen. It's where people fall off ladders and break their ankles like I did,
Oh,
So, like-
ladders, Dylan.
We don't need to go. We don't need to go
Dylan?
there.
Oh,
We don't need to go there.
Listen, let's talk. So let's segue here. So let's talk about ladders a little bit, Dylan. What has been your experience with ladders as of late?
As of late, they've been perfect. I've never fallen off ever from a 6-foot ladder. I've never had a broken wrist from a 6-foot ladder. We don't need to go there.
Dustin, thank you, sir, for bringing that back up. Remembered it from yesterday. Keyword, #ladders, Dylan Cott. Sorry.
Walking up vertically is really hard. Easy to misstep. Can happen to anyone.
Anyway, yeah, for the true believers, they know this story. Dylan had a little slip on his 6-foot step ladder last
it was 6
year.
foot. I was, and let me just clarify this. The audience needs to know this. It was a 6-foot step ladder. I was painting.
And that's
the
our show,
exterior of my
everybody.
house.
Thank you for listening today.
Will, are you sure
I
you
was-
weren't an electrician at some point? You kind of got that electrician energy about you. I love it.
Yeah. Well, my father-in-law was an electrician, so I got a little bit of his sense of
That's all
humor,
it
but
is.
none of his talent. Sorry,
Basically,
Dylan,
your
go
brain's
ahead.
been fried a few times. Is that what it is? I got to clarify, though. I was painting the exterior of my house, and I had a bucket of paint in my hand, and I fell in such a way as to protect all of the brick, so no paint would get on the brick.
Not
But
with
I
your body.
sacrificed my limb. I sacrificed my wrist.
Oh, dude, that sucks.
Did you
Yeah, I
hug the
really
bucket
did.
of paint? Like,
I basically cradled it and like turned away from the house and then landed on my left wrist. So
dude, you were in rough shape. Sorry, I got to
Yeah.
throw shade about that every
So-
once in a while, because
yeah, it happens. It happens.
if only you had more security cameras at your house, smart technology at your house that could have recorded that fall, that would have been amazing, Dylan.
Hey, they do have the Ring
Yeah.
doorbells now.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
right.
man. Actually, all full respect to Dylan. Dude, you were in rough shape after that week. I didn't expect you to show up in a growing green cast.
What's hilarious, like one other funny thing about this is, at the time I was an HR manager at Will's Foundation Repair Company. The following Monday, so not 3 days later, I had to present a safety meeting to the entire company. And what the irony was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Literally everyone was busting jokes like, are you sure you should be the guy that's talking about this? And I'm like, no, I probably shouldn't be. Let's be real.
Oh, God. And this is the lesson, everybody, is when you have your HR manager and you want to haze him, just remove him from the HR seat and put him in your other business. And then
That's
you can
right.
haze him all you want as a co-business partner. So anyway, hey, Dustin, we always ask our guests this question. I'm known as a patron saint of screwing things up. I've been doing it 20 years, and I always like to say, if you're going to screw it up, this is fitting for a Texan. If you're going to screw it up so bad you can brag about it like a Texan. What's a big screw up you had in your career that hopefully a few of our listeners could learn a lesson from that you can brag about?
Man, I feel like I'm pretty transparent about I've messed everything up. So if you go watch my videos, I talk about all the times I've gotten shocked. I've put ladders through windshields because I was throwing it up there too fast and just smashed all the windshields. I've blown up furnaces. I've fed things wrong voltages. I've made silly decisions in working and doing side work before I was licensed, and it was illegal, and I got in trouble with the state and almost lost my license. Like, bro, I've done everything under the sun to make mistakes, but I'm a fan of failing forward. Like, I feel like you haven't really lived a life if you haven't failed, and you fail 10,000 times, but you get it right once, and that's the success. But then you need more failing after that, right? So like, I think I've just failed on a lot of things, and I don't see that as a problem. I see that as the win, really.
Well, I think that's going to be a good, kind of message in just your candor and your disposition with, Electrician U is, I think, maybe my generation. Obviously, I'm kind of elder millennial, but a lot of generations are constantly being pegged for screwing it up and like downgraded. And that's what we need, I think, a little bit more in the trades is like, hey, listen, that's the goal. Screw it up. So just learn from it. So if you screw it up, just learn and make sure you don't do it that way anymore. So Dustin, I have had such a blast with you. I know Dylan has too. So tell me a little bit, or tell our listeners, all 4 or 5 of them, like how do we find you? Because you're everywhere, obviously. But like, where's the best way to find your content and learn more about Electrician U when it comes out?
Man, I would say type the word electrician in the internet. We have podcasts, so if your thing is that you like audio, obviously like these fine gentlemen, we're on Spotify and, iTunes. If you like long form video, YouTube, obviously. We're on Rumble too, in case one day I say the wrong thing and get canceled. You got it all backed up over there.
Like you got an OnlyFans page. Like you got it. You're racking
It's all socks and my feet. That's really the whole OnlyFans. No, but we're everywhere. So just type electrician and look.
That's cool. Well, I'm so humbled that you could come be with us on another show today. We haven't really found that niche in the electrical field, and I'm super excited to have a voice like yours that is bringing so much value to the world and to the trade. So thank you for that. For those listening, listen, I know we make jokes aside, 4 or 5 listeners, and I get messages from many of you. Please look this up, and Dustin, let me know when that launches, because I'm going to do just an announcement on a future episode about Electrician U, so we can get that out there. Otherwise, listen, Dylan, appreciate you, buddy. Dustin, appreciate you. And all you guys out there, thank you for listening to another episode of Beers with Contractors, and we will see you guys next week. See ya.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beers with Contractors. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did. Before we say our final goodbyes, a friendly reminder. Beers with Contractors encourages responsible drinking. If you choose to enjoy a beverage during our time together, please do so in moderation and only if you're of legal drinking age in your country or state. Furthermore, the advice and insights shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only. Always consult with professionals and experts in your field, and be sure to follow local laws and regulations regarding licensing and permits. We're here to help, entertain, and inspire, but your safety and compliance are important. So, as you head out into the world of construction and contracting, remember to build responsibly and make decisions that stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Beers with Contractors. Until then, cheers to your success.